It was a typical Monday morning in downtown Dallas. The marble floors of Langford Global's main lobby echoed with the clatter of high heels and the low hum of conversations about deadlines, client calls, and project updates. Hands clutched coffee cups like lifelines, and no one paid attention to the woman in the brown janitor's uniform, quietly mopping near the digital lobby directory. Her name was Rosa Mitchell, 42 years old. For over 13 years, she had worked the night shift with the custodial team. Most people didn't know where she was from or even what her name was. To them, Rosa was part of the background, like the automatic doors or flickering LED lights. Always present, always silent, always invisible. That same morning, Ethan Caldwell, the ambitious and sharp-minded CEO of Langford Global, was making his usual walk from the underground parking lot to the 20th floor executive suite. His mind was busy juggling numbers from last week's financial briefing and preparing for an upcoming international summit. But something stopped him cold in his tracks. A voice, not loud, but clear, confident, and spoken in flawless Mandarin. He turned his head, expecting to see a visiting delegate or a foreign consultant arriving early. Instead, he saw Rosa. She was calmly speaking with an older man in a windbreaker, who looked both confused and relieved. She guided him toward the elevators with the kind of ease and authority that came from experience and fluency. Before Ethan could process what he was witnessing, Rosa turned to address a delivery driver fumbling with a clipboard, this time in perfect Spanish. Seconds later, she faced another vendor examining mislabeled boxes and switched, effortlessly, to fluent French. Ethan froze, not from disbelief at the languages themselves, but at who was speaking them. This woman, this janitor, who had walked past him 100 times without a glance, was moving between languages like flipping light switches. He didn't know her. He'd never once asked about her. And yet, she just might be the most gifted communicator in the entire building. For a long moment, he stood there watching her. Then, a quiet question formed in his mind, one that would soon unravel everything he thought he understood about potential, opportunity, and the value of those we overlook. What have I missed? Right under my own roof. Ethan Caldwell didn't return to the elevator immediately. Instead, he kept his eyes on Rosa as she finished helping the confused man find the correct floor. She then pivoted seamlessly from one conversation to the next, switching between languages without hesitation. It wasn't just impressive, it was astonishing. He stepped closer. "Excuse me," he said, not in his usual commanding tone, but something quieter. Rosa turned, slightly startled. "Yes, sir." That was Mandarin, wasn't it? "Yes, sir," she replied, calm and polite. "You speak it fluently?" "Yes. And also Spanish, French, Portuguese, German, Arabic, Italian, Swahili, and I read Latin, though I wouldn't call that fluent." Ethan blinked. 9 languages? She nodded. "Yes, sir." There was no arrogance in her tone, just simple, honest truth. She didn't puff her chest or look for praise. She simply stated it like a fact, like saying she knew how to sweep a floor or replace a light bulb. He stared at her, momentarily speechless. "What's your name?" "Rosa Mitchell." "Miss Mitchell, would you be free for a few minutes?" Her eyebrows lifted slightly. "Now." "Yes. I'd like to talk to you in my office." She hesitated, not in fear, but in the way people do when they've spent their whole lives being overlooked and suddenly someone is looking, really looking. After a brief pause, she nodded. "All right." They rode the elevator in silence. As they ascended, Rosa quietly said, "I've worked here for 13 years. Ethan glanced over. "I didn't know that." She gave a faint smile. "Didn't think I'd ever be invited up here." He smiled back, though there was a quiet guilt behind it. You might be surprised how quickly things can change. But even he had no idea just how much. When they stepped into the executive suite, Ethan's assistant looked up, eyes wide with confusion as Rosa followed behind him. He didn't offer an explanation, just nodded and gestured for her to follow him into his office. It was pristine, glass walls, dark wood furniture, and a massive world map pinned with colorful dots behind his desk. Rosa sat when invited, folding her hands in her lap. She looked around, not in awe, but in awareness, like someone used to observing quietly from the sidelines. "Rosa," Ethan began, leaning forward, "I'll be honest. I didn't expect to have this conversation today." She said nothing. "But I just watched you move between 3 languages like they were nothing. That's not ordinary. That's exceptional. So I need to ask, how does someone like you end up here, cleaning floors? There was a pause. You want the real answer? She asked. I wouldn't have asked otherwise. She sighed. I was born in El Paso. My dad was a welder. My mom worked in home care. They pushed education hard. I got a scholarship to study linguistics at the University of Texas. Halfway through my master's, my mom got sick. Then my dad passed away from a stroke. I dropped out to take care of everything. Her voice didn't tremble. It wasn't a sob story. It was just life, laid out plain. I had a daughter. No partner. Bills to pay. I took any job I could get, grocery stores, elder care, temp work. Eventually, this job came along. It paid steady. It let me be there when my daughter got off school. So I stayed. Ethan listened in silence. But I never stopped learning. Borrowed language textbooks. Downloaded news in foreign languages. Practiced every night. It's the one thing I've never let go of. Because when I speak another language, I remember who I used to be. Who I still am. She paused, then added, most people never asked. They just saw the uniform and assumed. That last word, assumed, hung in the air like a quiet verdict. Ethan leaned back, eyes fixed on her. Rosa wasn't asking for pity. She was handing him the truth, wrapped in humility, strength, and quiet brilliance. The rest of the day moved on, but Ethan Caldwell's mind didn't. Even during budget reviews and vendor calls, he kept replaying that morning, Rosa's voice, her calm transitions between languages, her story. It unsettled him. Not in a bad way, but in the kind of way that reveals how much you've missed because you never stopped to look. Around 3:45 p.m., he left the executive suite and took the elevator to the service level. It wasn't something CEOs normally did. Down there, the air smelled of cleaning chemicals and cardboard boxes. He walked past tired break rooms, dented lockers, stacks of bottled water, and then saw her. Rosa was restocking microfiber cloths in the janitorial supply room. You again, she said, surprised. Can't stop thinking about our conversation, he replied. And I have a favor to ask. She wiped her hands. What kind of favor? There's a meeting upstairs with the Sao Paulo team. Our translator canceled last minute. I was hoping. Portuguese, she asked. He nodded. I can do that, she said. Minutes later, they walked into conference room 3C. Four Brazilian executives sat stiffly, scrolling their phones, clearly uncomfortable. As soon as Rosa entered and greeted them in fluent Portuguese, the atmosphere shifted. Shoulders relaxed. Smiles returned. Within minutes, she wasn't just translating, she was connecting. When one of the visitors cracked a joke, Rosa responded with another, and laughter followed. Ethan didn't understand a word, but he understood something deeper. Trust was being built right before his eyes. After the meeting, one of the Brazilian visitors turned to him. She's the best translator we've had this year, he said. Where did you find her? Ethan glanced at Rosa, who was quietly stacking coffee cups. Right here, he answered. Back in the hallway, he asked her, ever done professional translation? She shook her head. Just helped people at hospitals, courts, clinics. Never had time for degrees or certification. My daughter needed me more. And where is she now? She's 26. A nurse. Paid her own way through school. Got that stubborn streak from me. They smiled. Just two people, no titles. The next morning, Rosa had just finished wiping down the east lobby when her supervisor approached. Mr. Caldwell wants to see you again. She blinked. Did I do something wrong? He didn't say. Just asked me to send you up. Rosa cleaned her hands and took the same elevator as before. But something was different. People looked up as she passed. Some whispered. Others smiled faintly, as if they knew something she didn't. When she entered the executive suite, Ethan was already standing by the window, sipping black coffee. Come in, he said, without turning. She waited quietly until he turned to face her. I've been thinking a lot about talent, about how many people never get a shot. Not because they aren't good, but because no one looks twice. She said nothing. Praise wasn't something she trusted. Not yet. I want to create a new position, he continued. A role we don't currently have, but desperately need. She tilted her head. For what? Cultural liaison for international affairs. Someone who can speak the languages, understand nuances, bridge gaps. Someone like you. Rosa blinked. You're serious? As serious as I've ever been. I don't have a degree. You have something better. Lived experience, discipline, insight, and fluency in 9 languages. She shifted. Why me? Because yesterday, I watched you solve 3 problems in 3 languages before most people even open their email. And because I'm tired of walking past people doing twice the work for half the credit. She crossed her arms. You know people are going to talk. I don't care. I've never had a title. Never worked in an office. You'll learn fast. I don't have clothes for that kind of job. We'll send a stipend. She gave a dry chuckle. You thought of everything, huh? I'm trying. There was a long pause. What about my shift downstairs? We'll find someone. But no one can replace you. Another pause. You sure this isn't charity? No. This is overdue recognition. Her eyes shimmered, but she blinked it away. All right then, she said firmly. Let's see what I can do. He extended his hand. She shook it, not just as an agreement, but as a quiet rewriting of her story. By midweek, Rosa Mitchell's nameplate appeared outside a new office on the 12th floor. Cultural Liaison, International Affairs. Some cheered. Some whispered. Some doubted. But none of that mattered. Because Rosa wasn't there to prove anything. She was there to build something new. By Thursday morning, the news had spread faster than an office memo. Rosa Mitchell, the night janitor, was now an executive. People didn't know all the details, just bits and whispers. She speaks 9 languages. The CEO handpicked her. She might have worked in government or something. Some said, good for her. Others said nothing, but their silence spoke volumes. In the staff lounge, 2 marketing assistants sat hunched over their salads. I've got a master's in global business, one of them whispered. Been here 2 years. No promotion. And she was scrubbing floors last week. Her friend shrugged. Maybe she knows something we don't. Oh, please. It's Caldwell trying to check a box. Make himself look progressive. That kind of energy flowed into emails, Slack channels, and boardrooms. Some executives were curious. A few were quietly bitter. Rosa could feel it the second she stepped into her new office. It was simple, a desk, a plant, and a computer she hadn't touched yet. But to her, it felt like another planet. She sat down slowly, taking it all in. HR had finished her onboarding earlier that morning. Before they left, Rosa asked if she could keep her old janitor's badge, not to wear, just to remember. That afternoon, she met Victor Lim, head of international operations. He walked in holding a folder, his jaw tight and handshake non-existent. So, he said, glancing at the nameplate, you're the new liaison? That's what I'm told. You have experience in corporate environments? Rosa smiled gently. Only from the outside looking in. He didn't laugh. I've got pending reports from Italy, translation issues in Dubai, and a contract mess in Sao Paulo. Think you can manage that? I'll need a few hours to review, but yes. Victor dropped the folder on her desk like it was a challenge and left without another word. Later that evening, Ethan Caldwell stopped by her office. How's day 1? Rosa leaned back in her chair. I've had worse. Victor giving you a hard time? He doesn't scare me. Ethan chuckled. Didn't think he would. Rosa paused. Can I ask you something? Anything. Why now? Why me? You could have given me a bonus, said thanks, and kept moving. He leaned against the doorway, arms crossed. Because I saw myself in you. You were a janitor? She raised an eyebrow. No, he smiled. But I was overlooked. Grew up fixing cars with my dad in a town no one cared about. Worked 3 jobs through school. People didn't think I belonged in rooms like this either. Rosa nodded slowly. And now you decide who gets in. Exactly. She looked down at the file Victor left. I'll be honest, I'm nervous. Good. Means you care. There are people who hate this already. They'll get over it. Or they won't. Either way, you belong here. He started to leave, then turned back. You've got a story, Rosa. A real one. Now you've got a platform. Use it. The next morning, Rosa arrived early. She led a call with the German office in flawless Deutsch. She corrected a translation in an old contract that had cost the company thousands. She guided a junior associate through an international invoice process and sat with a nervous intern before their first client presentation. By lunchtime, someone had written in dry erase marker on the whiteboard outside her office. We see you. No name. No credit. Just 3 words that meant the world. Because even though not everyone was clapping, Rosa was changing the culture, quietly, confidently, and in every language necessary. Weeks passed, and something unexpected began to happen. People stopped seeing Rosa Mitchell as the janitor who got promoted and started seeing her as the leader who made things work. She didn't decorate her office with awards or motivational quotes. Instead, she kept her space simple, quiet, and open, just like she was. A small framed photo of her daughter sat beside her monitor. And inside the top drawer, tucked beneath a notebook and a pen, was her old brown employee badge, a silent reminder of every step it took to get there. When Langford Global faced a stalled negotiation with partners in Morocco, Rosa was invited to join the meeting. No one briefed her. She didn't ask for notes. She simply entered the room in a soft beige blazer, looked the delegation in the eye, and greeted them in fluent Moroccan Arabic. The room shifted. Posture straightened. Eyes met hers. Conversations flowed. Afterward, one of the Moroccan executives quietly approached her, touched his chest, a gesture of deep respect, and said, "No one's ever done that for us. Not in our language. Not like that." Rosa smiled gently. "You matter. That's all." Later that week, Ethan made a quiet decision. The company's main training room, where new hires were on board and managers were trained, had always been nameless. Now it had one. A brushed steel plaque appeared beside the door. The Atwater Room. No fanfare. No announcement. Just a quiet shift in legacy. That afternoon, Rosa found a sealed envelope on her desk. No return address, only her name written in block letters. Inside was a note. "I used to think I'd be invisible forever, but today I stood a little taller because of you. Thank you." No name. Just proof that someone, somewhere, was watching and needed to see her rise. But not everyone was cheering. Some executives still whispered. A few tried to discredit her behind closed doors. Rosa knew. And she didn't flinch. Because she wasn't there to impress. She was there to do the work. At a leadership summit in Cincinnati, Rosa was invited to speak. She didn't talk about her promotion. She talked about the years she cleaned offices no one noticed. About learning languages in the quiet corners of exhaustion. About being capable before anyone cared to ask. "I was never just a janitor," she told the crowd. "I was fluent. I was prepared. I was ready." But no one looked long enough to see it. The room stood in silence. Then, applause. On her way out, a young man stopped her. "My mom's a cleaner," he said. "She speaks 5 languages. I used to be embarrassed by that." Rosa touched his arm gently. "Don't ever be ashamed of where you come from. The only thing to be ashamed of is staying blind to brilliance." She walked out taller than ever, not because of the job, not because of the title, but because she didn't have to change who she was to belong.